This is Neural Newscast for Tuesday, March 24, 2026. A fatal collision at LaGuardia disrupts air travel as investigators search for answers.
And the Supreme Court takes up a case that could redefine how mail-in ballots are counted nationwide. Here is what matters this morning.
From Neural Newscast, I'm Noah Feldman.
And I'm Hannah Whitmore.
Flight operations have resumed at New York's LaGuardia Airport following a fatal collision between an Air Canada regional jet and a firefighting vehicle. The crash happened late Sunday night when Air Canada Flight 8646, arriving from Montreal, struck a Port Authority truck on the runway.
The impact resulted in the deaths of 2 pilots on board the CRJ-900 aircraft, which was carrying 72 passengers and 4 crew members. Port Authority Executive Director Catherine Garcia confirmed that 41 people were hospitalized, though most have since been discharged.
National Transportation Safety Board investigators are now focused on why that fire truck was on the runway while the plane was landing. The vehicle was reportedly responding to a separate issue regarding an odor on a United Airlines aircraft when the collision occurred.
Air traffic control audio reveals a controller shouting for the truck to stop just seconds before the impact. Investigators will examine if staffing shortages contributed to the incident, as one controller may have been managing both ground and air traffic at the time.
The airport remained closed until yesterday afternoon, resulting in more than 600 flight cancellations. Long queues formed at Terminal B as passengers navigated the disruption, which was further complicated by a shortage of TSA agents due to the partial government shutdown.
The 2 Port Authority officers inside the fire truck survived the crash and are listed in stable condition. While the airport is back in service, officials warn that residual delays will likely persist throughout the next several days.
Turning now to the legal system, the Supreme Court is set to weigh whether states can count mail ballots that are postmarked by but arrive after Election Day. The case, Watson v. RNC, centers on a Mississippi law that allows a 5-day grace period for late-arriving ballots.
The Republican National Committee and the state's Libertarian Party argue that federal statutes from the 1800s require all ballots to be received by the Tuesday after the first Monday in November. They contend that the election ends when the ballot box closes.
Mississippi Secretary of State Michael Watson has defended the law, arguing that an election is defined by the moment a voter marks and submits their choice. He asserts that the Constitution gives states the authority to set these administrative rules for federal elections.
A ruling against Mississippi could have immediate effects on 14 other states and the District of Columbia that currently utilize similar grace periods. It would fundamentally change how results are finalized in many jurisdictions across the country.
Next, the potential impact on military and overseas voters is a central concern for election officials. Currently, 29 states allow extra time for ballots coming from service members stationed abroad who rely on international mail systems.
Advocacy groups warn that nearly 4 million Americans living overseas could be disenfranchised if the Supreme Court mandates that ballots must be in hand by Election Day. There is currently no explicit constitutional exception for these voters.
In other news, several states have already begun moving toward stricter receipt deadlines. Last year, Kansas, North Dakota, Ohio, and Utah passed laws that eliminated their previous grace periods and now require ballots to arrive by Election Day.
The United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit previously ruled that federal law trumps Mississippi's deadline, stating the election result is not fixed while live ballots are still being received. That decision is what led to the current Supreme Court appeal.
Turning now to today's watch list, we are looking for the NTSB to release a preliminary report on the LaGuardia collision within the next 10 days. This report should clarify the communication between the Air Traffic Control Tower and the Port Authority emergency vehicles.
Next, oral arguments for the Watson case begin this morning in Washington. Court watchers will be listening closely for questions from the justices regarding whether the 1800 statutes were intended to regulate the receipt of ballots or merely the act of casting them.
Finally, we are watching for an update on TSA staffing levels at major Northeast hubs. With the partial government shutdown continuing, the shortage of security personnel could lead to further travel disruptions at airports already struggling with the LaGuardia aftermath.
The aviation industry is also monitoring whether the LaGuardia crash prompts new federal safety mandates for runway incursions. Any changes to emergency vehicle protocols could affect airports nationwide by the end of the year.
This has been Neural Newscast. I'm Noah Feldman. Thanks for listening.
And I'm Hannah Whitmore. Neural Newscast is AI-assisted, human-reviewed. View our AI transparency policy at neuralnewscast.com.